Have you ever been sitting at a family dinner, trying to blend in, when suddenly someone drops a question that flips your entire world upside down? That's exactly what happened to me on my 26th birthday. I wasn't prepared for it. Honestly, I was just trying to survive the night, to smile at the right moments, to laugh at the polite jokes, and to avoid talking too much about my messy little life. You see, I was living in a converted garage in Los Angeles. The kind of space where you hear every car alarm outside, where the ceiling fan rattles like it's about to crash down, and where the neighbor's music seeps through the walls no matter what time of night. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself this was part of paying dues as an aspiring actress. Still, it was exhausting. Walking into that restaurant in Beverly Hills felt like stepping onto another planet. The polished marble floor, the hushed conversations, the waiters gliding by in crisp uniforms. My entire family already seated around a long table with candles flickering in the center. I tried to act like I belonged, but every glance reminded me that I didn't. My sister in her tailored dress, my father in a jacket that screamed money, my stepmother with her flawless smile. I kept smoothing the wrinkles out of my thrifted skirt, hoping no one noticed. The evening started off harmless, toasts, polite chatter. My grandfather, always the warmest presence at the table, leaned toward me with a proud smile. He had this way of making you feel like the only person in the room. He lifted his glass and said, "So, Sophia, how's the condo in Santa Monica treating you?" The condo. At first I thought I misheard him. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. "Sorry, what condo?" I asked, trying to laugh it off. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe he was mixing me up with my cousin. But the silence that followed? That silence was heavy. Everyone else at the table looked down at their plates. My father shifted in his seat. My sister's hand trembled slightly as she reached for her wine glass. I repeated myself, this time sharper. "What condo?" The restaurant noise seemed to fade. I could hear the clink of a spoon from another table, the squeak of a chair across the room. My grandfather frowned, confused. "The condo I bought for you, on Ocean Avenue. The one with the view of the pier." It felt like the air was sucked out of the room. My mind scrambled. I didn't own a condo. I was crashing in a garage with a leaky roof and no insulation. My credit card was maxed out. I barely made rent every month. So, what was he talking about? I glanced around the table, waiting for someone to laugh, to explain the misunderstanding. Nobody spoke. My father's jaw was tight. My stepmother's eyes darted from me to him, as if silently begging him to handle it. My sister stared into her glass like it held the answers. I felt my cheeks burn. Was this some kind of cruel joke? Why would my grandfather believe I had a condo in Santa Monica? Why would he bring it up in front of everyone? I turned to him again, my voice cracking. "Grandpa, I don't live in a condo. I've never even been inside one in Santa Monica. Where did you get that idea?" He blinked at me, confused. His smile faltered. "But I gave your father the money last year for you, for your future." There it was, a statement that landed like a thunderclap. My fork slipped from my hand and clattered against the plate. All the little humiliations of my cramped life, the mildew smell in the garage, the busted heater, the endless late-night auditions, flashed through my mind at once. All while there was supposedly a condo, a real home, with my name attached to it. My stomach twisted. I thought about every night I lay awake listening to sirens, wondering if chasing this dream was worth it. About every time I told myself, one day things will get better. And now hearing this, that there was money, a condo, and somehow I knew nothing about it. I stared at my father. "Is this true?" I asked. My voice was low but sharp enough to cut glass. He didn't answer. Not right away. He just pressed his lips together and looked at his plate. the way he always did when he didn't want to be challenged. My stepmother touched his arm gently, as if reminding him that all eyes were on us. Nobody else said a word. Nobody came to my defense. The weight of their silence was louder than any shout. And in that silence, a loop started spinning in my head. Why me? Why would they keep this from me? Why let me struggle while everyone pretends nothing's wrong? You ever have that moment where you realize the people you trust most might not have your back? That maybe they've been hiding something and you're the last one to know? That was me, right there in that restaurant on what was supposed to be my birthday celebration. I wanted to get up and leave, but my legs wouldn't move. I wanted to demand answers, but my throat was dry. Instead, I sat frozen, replaying my grandfather's words over and over. The condo I bought for you? That question changed everything. It cracked open the first door to secrets I didn't know existed. Secrets that would pull me into the ugliest side of family loyalty, money, and power. And once that door was open, I couldn't close it again. Because if there really was money, if there really was a condo, then what else was hidden from me? When the dinner ended in that suffocating silence, I knew I couldn't just let it go. The ride back to my father's house felt like being dragged into a courtroom where everyone had already decided the verdict but me. My grandfather insisted we talk things through at the house, and no one argued. I didn't have a choice. The drive was quiet. I stared out the window, streetlights streaking past like blurred questions I couldn't answer. My stomach churned. My hands kept clenching and unclenching. You ever brace yourself for a truth you know will hurt, but you can't stop yourself from demanding it? That was me. We gathered in the living room. Me, my father, my stepmother, my sister, and my grandfather. The air felt heavy, like even the walls knew something was about to crack. My grandfather didn't waste time. He pulled a manila envelope from his coat pocket and placed it on the coffee table. "Here," he said, his voice firm. "This is the receipt, the deed, the wire transfer." I bought that condo in Santa Monica. It was for Sophia. It was always meant for her future. The words echoed in my head. He wasn't mistaken. He wasn't confused. He had proof. My chest tightened as my father picked up the papers but didn't flip through them. He just sighed, rubbed his temples and muttered, "Dad, you don't understand." "I don't understand?" My grandfather shot back. "I gave you $750,000 for her, and now she tells me she's never even stepped foot inside. You explain that to me." I turned to my father, my voice sharp. "Explain it to me too. Why am I still living in a garage if this money existed? Why did you let me believe I was broke, struggling, failing?" My father finally looked at me, his eyes tired but defensive. "Because you weren't ready," he said. "You think owning a condo would fix your life? You can barely keep up with auditions. You jump from job to job. I wasn't about to throw that kind of responsibility on you. I put it somewhere it could do good." "Do good?" I repeated, my voice trembling. "For who?" He hesitated. My stepmother shifted uncomfortably. My sister stared at the floor. Then, like ripping off a bandage, my father admitted, "I invested it. Into your brother-in-law's company. It was a sure thing stable. It helps the family. It helps everyone." The room went silent except for the pounding in my ears. He took my future, my stability, and handed it to someone else. "So, let me get this straight," I said slowly, trying to keep my voice from breaking. "You used money meant for me, money Grandpa gave me, to fund someone else's dream. While I was scraping together tips to pay rent, while I was eating ramen 3 times a week, while I was—" my voice cracked. "While I was drowning." My father opened his mouth, but I cut him off. "Do you even hear yourself? You call it helping the family. But what about me? Am I not part of this family?" No one answered. And in that silence, something inside me snapped. Flashbacks hit me in quick succession. The scholarship I got into USC's film program. The internship at that big production studio. The small speaking role I landed out of nowhere. I had believed all of it was my grind paying off, my persistence, my work. But suddenly, I remembered small comments. My father saying, "Don't worry, we've got friends in the right places." My stepmother smiling too knowingly when I came home with good news. The thought clawed its way into my mind. What if none of it was real? "Tell me the truth," I demanded, my voice louder now. The scholarship, the internship, my first role, were those me or were those you? My sister looked up, her face pale. My father stayed quiet. That was all the answer I needed. I felt the floor tilt beneath me. Years of sweat and tears, of convincing myself I was making progress, shattered in seconds. If everything had been orchestrated, then what was mine? What did I actually earn? The betrayal wasn't just about money anymore. It was about identity. It was about realizing that every triumph I thought I owned might have been a gift wrapped in lies. "You wanted to protect me?" I said bitterly. "No." "You wanted to control me. You wanted to make sure I never felt like I could stand on my own. That way, I'd always owe you, always need you. Is that it?" My father's jaw tightened. "You're being dramatic." "Dramatic?" I snapped. "Dramatic is thinking your entire life has been a lie. Dramatic is realizing the people who should lift you up are the same ones who clipped your wings." My grandfather slammed his fist on the table. "Enough! This is not how family treats each other." His voice shook with anger, but it didn't matter. The damage was done. My stepmother whispered, "Maybe it was for the best." I turned to her, disbelief flooding me. For the best? For who? Because it wasn't for me. You all let me live small, struggle, suffer, while pretending you knew better. And you never gave me a choice. That's what stung most. The lack of choice. They'd rewritten my story without asking me if I even wanted their version. I felt hot tears prick my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I wasn't going to cry in front of them. Not when the anger was burning so much hotter. "You stole from me," I said, my voice steady now. "Not just money, not just a condo. You stole my belief that I could build something real. You stole my victories, and I don't know how to forgive that." The room was silent again, except this time it wasn't awkward. It was heavy, final. You ever realize in a single moment that the foundation under your feet was never solid? That it was always borrowed, always manipulated, always someone else's plan? That's where I stood, in my father's house, surrounded by people who thought they knew what was best for me, but had only stripped me of myself. And in that moment, all I could think was, if this is family, then maybe I'm better off without it. I didn't slam the door. I closed it carefully, like the last page of a chapter you don't plan to reread. The hallway smelled like lemon polish and money, and for a second I wondered if I'd made the whole night up. Then I felt the envelope edges in my palm, photocopies, numbers, a condo I'd never touch. And the doubt vanished. Outside, the air was cool and thin. I could hear sprinklers ticking in perfect arcs across manicured lawns. I didn't cry. I didn't let myself. I put one foot in front of the other and walked toward the streetlights like they were buoys, and I was done with drowning. You ever notice how the city sounds different when you're done pretending? Tires on wet asphalt, a far siren, a hummingbird of a text buzzing in your pocket. I looked down. My sister. "Are you okay?" Number. I let the screen go dark and kept walking. I didn't go back to the garage, not yet. I took the bus down Sunset because I needed people around me who weren't invested in my failure, who didn't know my last name or my family's taste in wine. The bus was half empty. A couple holding grocery bags, a kid tapping out a rhythm on his backpack, a woman asleep against the window. Streetlights streaked into gold threads. Los Angeles at night felt honest, uneven, loud, a little bit kind. I landed at Echo Park Lake and sat on a bench that still held the day's heat. Ducks cut dark versus through the black water. I called the one person who never asked me to be anyone else. Lena. She answered on the second ring, voice husky from rehearsal. Where are you? At the lake. I'm coming. 20 minutes later, a dusty Prius pulled up, trunk taped where a taillight should have been. Lena jogged over in paint-splattered overalls and wrapped me in a hug that smelled like eucalyptus and sawdust. I didn't have to explain. She saw the envelope, she saw my face. She just said, "You're not staying there tonight," and led me to the car. Her place was a shoebox over a bodega, but it felt like oxygen. Windows open, a fan rattling, a wall covered in flyers for pop-up performances and backyard shows. Instruments leaned in corners. A pair of red stage curtains hung from plumbing pipes. Someone had painted a mural of a moon with chipped teeth. "Couch is yours," Lena said. "Or bed." "I can take the couch. Don't argue." "I'm not arguing." She poured 2 glasses of water and waited. I told her everything, not in a neat line, in jolts, in gasps, the condo, the money, the fake wins that weren't mine, the way silence had choked the room. She didn't say I told you so. She didn't say that's rough. She just let me empty the drawer. When I finished, she leaned back, blew out a slow breath and said, "Okay, new plan. 2 words. A lifeline." The new plan started with small things. I blocked my father's number for the night. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb except for Lena and my grandfather. I put on an old t-shirt that smelled like detergent and paint. I slept finally with the window open and a box fan pushing the city into the room. Morning brought the bodega coffee and the sound of people living. A delivery truck beeping. Someone shouting for their dog. Across the hall, a trumpet warming up on a blues scale. Lena shoved a bowl of oatmeal at me and a to-do list. 1. Call your landlord. 2. Pack essentials. 3. You're moving in here for now. I stared at the list. It looked like control in a place that wasn't built on it. We packed the garage in 90 minutes, essentials only. Clothes, headshots, a ring light with 1 flickering bulb, a box of playbills, a cracked kettle. I left the string lights, the rug that never lay flat, the shame. As we carried boxes down the stairs, I kept repeating one line in my head like a drum beat. I get to choose. That afternoon, Lena took me to the warehouse. You wouldn't notice it if you weren't looking. A roll-up door, a tag of spray paint on cinder block. Inside, a chaos that somehow added up to home. Racks of costumes, milk crates of props, a spray-painted half-moon, a pair of battered platform shoes, and a stage built from pallets and stubbornness. People called hello without pausing what they were doing. Someone tuning a guitar, someone balancing on a stack of milk crates to focus a can light. The air tasted like dust and lemon cleaner and possibility. "This is our black box," Lena said, spreading her arms. "We pop up wherever the city lets us. Parking lots, rooftops, backyards. The cops have only shut us down twice." A guy with silver hair and a bandana nodded at me. "Welcome to the Misfits," he said. "You sing, act, juggle fire?" "I tell stories," I said. My voice surprised me. It sounded steady. "I can act. I can write." "Good." He grinned. "We need a monologue that hits like a punch and then kisses your cheek." Pattern interrupt. The ask landed like a dare. I said yes. The next nights blurred in the way only work can blur you. Late rehearsals, floor tape on my jeans, a stubbed toe, the ache of remembering lines until the words finally fit the shape of my mouth. We built a set from cardboard doors and velvet scraps. We carved scenes out of real things. Rent, fear, wanting more, loving anyway. The first time I stepped onto that pallet stage under a single hot light and heard a handful of strangers shift in their seats, I remember thinking, this is mine. This breath. This beat. Mine. The texts kept coming while we built. The father-shaped ones. the sister-shaped ones, the grandfathers. Call me when you can. Please, I wasn't ready. I set the phone across the room when I ran scenes, like you put a noisy thing in a drawer so it can't cut through a song. On the third night, my sister found me anyway. I was on the warehouse steps with a chipped mug of tea when a black sedan pulled up, and she stepped out in sneakers and a hoodie, hair scraped into a ponytail, no armor. For a second, I saw the version of us from years ago. Two girls passing headphones back and forth on a bus, laughing at nothing. Then the present slid back into place. "I know you don't want to see me," she said, voice small. "But I needed to say it to your face. I'm sorry." I looked at the ground. Oil stains like constellations. "You knew." "I knew the money existed," she said. "I didn't know everything. I didn't know how much you were hurting. I told myself it wasn't my business, that Dad would handle it, that we were protecting you. I was wrong. There was no orchestra swell. No perfect forgiveness, just two people in the exhaust of a city evening trying to be honest for once." She put something in my hand, a keychain, a tiny silver wave, the kind you'd buy on a pier. "You deserved a view," she said. "I'm sorry you didn't get one." We sat until the tea went cold. She talked about waking up and not recognizing her life. I talked about the shame of discovering mine had been stitched by someone else. We weren't fixed, but the thread wasn't broken anymore. My grandfather came the next day. He didn't bring papers. He brought oranges and an apology so plain it didn't have room for defense. He watched rehearsal from the back, his hands folded on a cane he didn't really need. When the scene ended, he wiped his eyes and said, "I thought giving you things was love. I forgot you wanted a vote." "I did," I said. "I'm here to vote for you now," he replied. "No more strings, not from me." Later, the rumors began to drift in, the way smoke finds you even when the wind's in your favor. My father had overextended. The investment everyone said was a sure thing wasn't. Calls weren't being returned. People who'd once lined up to nod along began to step back. One courteous inch at a time. I didn't cheer, I didn't gloat. Loss is loss, even when you warned it at the door. I put my phone down and ran my lines again. We opened the show on a Friday. A makeshift row of folding chairs, a string of cafe bulbs overhead. A teenager took tickets with a cash box and a Sharpie. Lena whispered, "Look at them." And I did. Neighbors, baristas, a woman in scrubs, a couple who'd wandered in because the door was open and the laughter pulled them. I walked on stage with my palms sweating and my heart pounding in the clean, good way. I started my monologue with a question. Have you ever tried living small because someone convinced you that was safer? And watched the front row lean in. Every time the audience laughed, I felt a knot release. Every time they went quiet, I felt seen. When the lights went down on the final beat, there was a second of hush and then hands, real hands, clapping for something we'd built with glue and grit. Was it Broadway? No, it was better. It was ours. After, we stood in the alley, cheeks flushed, breathing steam into the night. A woman in a navy hoodie touched my arm. "I needed that," she said. "Thank you for saying the part most of us are afraid to say out loud." I walked home beneath a sky the color of asphalt, a paper bag of leftover empanadas warm against my side. In the window of the bodega, my reflection looked different. Tired, sure, but also steadier, like someone you could hand a story to and trust she'd care for it. Was the hurt gone? Number. Did I forgive everyone? Not yet. But I had a couch, a stage, a keychain wave that caught the light when I turned it in my hand. I had a boundary, and I wasn't apologizing for it. I had the beginning of a life that answered to my name. If you've ever had to walk away to hear your own voice again, tell me how you did it. Drop your story in the comments. Someone like me will read it at midnight and feel less alone. The first time I felt it, It wasn't a phone call. It was a ripple. A bigger audience at the warehouse, extra chairs dragged in from the alley. A couple in Lululemons who didn't look like they lived anywhere near our zip code. A guy with a lanyard who stayed after the show and asked too many questions about process and pipeline and who's handling your bookings. Our little black box shows had started as therapy with lights. Now they were selling out. Word of mouth, mostly. A barista told a podcaster who told a blogger who told a casting assistant. People came because they recognized themselves in our mess. They laughed where it hurt and clapped like they were trying to stitch something back together. You know that hum a room gets when the crowd is there for it? We lived on that hum. One Friday, a woman approached me after the curtain call. She had clean sneakers and a notebook with tabs, and the kind of calm you only get from wrangling chaos for a living. "I'm Mara," she said. "I work with a producing team in West Hollywood. We'd love to talk about developing your monologue into something bigger, something bigger." The words floated in the air like confetti. I tried to catch one, and it dissolved on my fingers. We met 2 days later in a cafe that served rose lattes and played vinyl records a little too loudly. Mara asked about my background, my voice, my boundaries. She didn't flinch when I said the B word. She nodded when I said the R word. "Budget," she said, smiling, "and rights, absolutely." She'd read my pieces online. She'd watched a shaky bootleg someone posted. She used the word authentic without making my skin crawl. "What do you want, Sophia?" she asked. "If you could point at a line on the map, where would this go?" The question felt like sunlight. I told her the truth. I wanted scale without losing soul. I wanted a wider room, not a different room. I wanted the kind of deal that let me keep my name on the work and my hands on the steering wheel. She took notes. "We can start with a live limited run," she said, "then film it for a streamer. Or we explore a hybrid, docu-theater. Your story plus the city. We'd attach a director who gets street-born work. We'd protect the edges, protect the edges." I didn't know deals had edges. I just knew my life did. "Next step," she said. "Come by the office, meet the partners, no pressure." I walked home feeling taller, not louder, just steadier. The city looked different, like someone turned the saturation up. Palm trees were greener. Parking tickets were still expensive, but somehow less personal. When I told Lena, she screamed into a pillow and then started pacing like she was choreographing joy. "This is big," she said. "It's your voice, but louder. Promise me one thing. Don't let anyone translate you into something you won't recognize." "I won't," I said, and I believed it. The office was glass and plants and industry casual, expensive sneakers, laptops propped on stacks of film magazines. The lobby had posters of projects that had actually shipped, which in Los Angeles is its own kind of miracle. A receptionist with perfect eyeliner offered sparkling water and a smile that said she'd seen 12 dreams that morning and was rooting for all of them. Mara met me and gave a quick tour. "Writer's room," she said, gesturing at a space humming with dry erase markers and silent arguments. "Podcast studio, editing bays." Oh, we passed a wall of photos. Crews on rooftops, a drone over the desert, a table read where someone was crying in a good way. In the conference room, 2 partners joined. John wore a denim jacket and the kind of glasses directors are born with. Priya had ink on her fingers and a laugh that landed like a toast. They didn't talk numbers yet. They asked what I couldn't compromise. They asked what scared me. They asked who I was trying to reach when I looked past the lights. "People who think they're too late," I said. "People who were told they were too much." Priya tapped her pen. "There's an audience starving for that." "Here's our thought," John said, sliding a 1-pager across the table. 6 weeks on a black box stage will rent and dress to keep your rawness, then a filmed capture with a small crew and no cranes, intimate. We build social around you, speaking directly to camera between scenes, micro stories. The stuff your audience already loves, quote. I read the page twice. It didn't smell like a trap. It smelled like a door. Still, my chest tightened, because doors, once opened, change the room. And I'd just learned to love the one we'd built from pallets and stubbornness. You ever stand on a threshold and feel both halves of yourself tugging? The brave one, the careful one, both wanting the mic. Think on it, Mara said, standing. No rush. We move at your pace. On the way out, a junior coordinator stopped me. I saw your alley show, she said. The one with the doorway made from cardboard. I cried at the part where you said, my name fits me now. I just wanted you to know. Thank you. I walked back into the heat with the one-pager folded in my pocket like a promise. The buzz reached the warehouse before I did. Someone must have seen my Instagram story. A coffee cup and a caption that said, good meeting, good people, good nerves. The troop exploded with questions. Will there be real dressing rooms? Do we have to wear shoes? Can the fog machine finally retire? Joy turned practical in a second, because artists learn to hold excitement with one hand and logistics with the other. We circled up on stage, tape marks still visible under our sneakers. I read the proposal out loud. We talked about non-negotiables, keeping our ticket block for community nights, paying our crew first, keeping the edges, our edges, visible. Are you scared? Lena asked when the room had emptied and the lights hummed. Yes, I said, the good kind. That week was a montage without the music. I did normal things through a tilted lens. I bought fruit at the farmer's market and thought about contracts. I answered DMs from girls in Cleveland and Bristol who wrote, your monologue felt like a voice memo I needed. I worked my day shift at the bakery pop-up and practiced saying, we're in early conversations, without sounding either arrogant or apologetic. At night, I added a new piece to my set. It was about standing in a room where people pronounce your name correctly and still ask you who you are. I tried it on a Thursday. The room leaned in. A woman in the back laughed in the way that means same. When it was over, I knew the work wanted more room. It had been knocking from the inside. Then came the email, subject line, offer. It felt unreal, seeing the word typed like that. Inside, terms, timeline, a meeting to go over everything with legal. The number wasn't life-changing, the control was. Notes on creative sign-off. Language about authorship. A schedule that left space for what we already did. I read it 3 times on the fire escape. The metal was hot under my legs. The city was loud and kind again. I thought about the first night I stepped on our pallet stage. I thought about the girl who closed a door softly and decided not to reread that chapter. I thought about you, because you've been in these comments, telling me about your own thresholds, your own rooms you built from nothing. What if Hollywood suddenly called your name? Would you pick up? Would you let it in? Would you ask it to wipe its feet before it crossed your threshold? That's where I was, standing with a yes in one hand and a maybe in the other, listening for my own voice under the hum. I didn't say yes that day. I didn't say no. I let the offer sit next to my toothbrush and my keys, where I keep the things I don't want to forget. I went to the warehouse and did what had brought me here in the first place. I told a story. I watched a room lean in. I felt the ground hold. If you've ever been on the edge of a bigger room, tell me how you stepped through. What did you keep? What did you leave? Your answers helped me hear my own. The email with the offer sat like a stone on my dresser for 3 days. I brushed my teeth beside it. I changed my shirt beside it. I kept telling myself I would answer when the voice in my chest got louder than the hum. It almost did. Then the phone rang. Mara. Quick update, she said, brisk but warm. The partners want to loop in our financing side to fast-track the stage rental. Nothing changes on your end. We'll CC your representation. Representation? I didn't have any. I'll bring in a lawyer, I said. Perfect, she said. Also, heads up, there's a brand consultant offering in-kind support. They've already mocked up some promo ideas with your name. You'll see an email. My name, already on posters I hadn't approved. The words pricked, but I swallowed the worry. Maybe this is just how speed looks. Maybe this is normal. 10 minutes later, a Google Drive hit my inbox, a folder with my name in caps, inside, decks, color palettes, hashtags. A tagline that read, Sophia, make noise, make nice. Make nice? With who? With what? I scrolled faster, slide after slide. My face cut out from a show still, my words wrapped in quotation marks I didn't say. A calendar of content I hadn't planned. At the bottom, a credit line for the brand team. A company name I recognized from charity galas I'd stood outside of. And beneath the company name, small, almost an afterthought, a man's initials, R.T., my father's initials. I stared until the letters blurred. You know that feeling when the blood drains from your face and then rushes back too fast? That. I took a screenshot. I called Mara. I'm confused, I said. Calm. Too calm. Why is a team connected to my father involved in my marketing? A pause. What? She asked. That's new information. Whose idea was the tagline? I asked. Who greenlit using my name without me? I'll find out, she said. Give me an hour. I didn't last 5 minutes. I went down the stairs 2 at a time and out into the heat. The sidewalk shimmered. The bodega bell clanged behind me. I called my sister. No answer. I called the office my father used to run all of his sure things. The number was disconnected. I called my stepmother. Straight to voicemail. My phone buzzed with a new email while it rang. Subject: Talent usage authorization. Draft, a PDF. Legalese stacked like bricks, I scrolled. My eyes snagged on a clause. The producer is authorized to utilize the name, voice, likeness, and life story of Sophia R. in conjunction with promotional activities executed by affiliated entities. Then, in a box labeled Affiliated Entities, 3 names I didn't recognize and 1 I knew in my bones. My father's restructured media group. Quick flashback. One of those flickers your brain throws up when it wants to remind you who you are. Me, 15, signing a permission slip for a school play while my father threw in a release for archival footage. He called it standard. The footage later became a sizzle reel at a fundraiser I wasn't invited to. I learned to ask questions. I learned that standard is a word you use when you want someone to stop reading. I read every line. Then I hit the signature page and saw my name. Not just typed, signed, not by me. The signature was almost mine, like a forger tracing a memory. My stomach folded. I called Mara again. I'm sending you a doc, I said. If this came from your side, we're done. If it came from someone else's side, I need you with me when I burn it down, she said. Send it. And then, softer. I'm with you. The warehouse was already glowing when I got there. Lena was making a prop door out of corrugated cardboard and gaffer's tape. Breathe, she said before I even spoke. I handed her the phone. She read. She didn't talk for a full 30 seconds, which for Lena is a century. Then, we're going to fix this. How? I asked. With what? A thread and a wish? With the truth, she said. And a lawyer. She pulled up a contact. My cousin worked in entertainment rights at a firm in Santa Monica. He left to start his own thing because, quote, I prefer artists to spreadsheets. He'll look. Pro bono until he believes in you. Then he'll send a bill you can actually pay. A text pinged, my grandfather. Are you safe? Your father is saying he's protecting you. I don't believe him. Call me when you can. Protecting me. That phrase again, like a hand over your mouth masquerading as a hug. Mara called back within the hour, voice steady but tight. We didn't generate that document, she said. It came from a liaison who claimed to represent your interests. It got forwarded to our legal interns as a draft. It should never have landed in your inbox without us. I am so sorry. We've frozen all movement. Can I come to you? Yes, I said. Come to the warehouse. Bring whoever wrote you that introduction. They came. Mara, composed but furious in a quiet way. A junior legal who looked 12 and terrified. A man in a powder blue blazer who introduced himself as just a connector. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Who pays you?" I asked him. "Various parties," he said. "Which ones?" He cleared his throat. "My understanding is that your family wants what's best for you. They felt—" "Stop," I said. "Say the name." He said my father's name like it was a password. There it was. Not a ripple. A rip. The offer I had cradled like a fragile bird had strings tied to its feet, and the strings ran back to a hand I knew too well. "You don't get to use my name," I said. "You don't get to pretend you're me. You don't get to hand my voice to a brand I didn't choose." "It was a draft," he stammered. "Standard. You would have reviewed—" "There's that word again," I said. "Standard." My lawyer, Lena's cousin Gabe, arrived mid-conversation in a faded tee and clean sneakers. He took one look at the PDF and whistled low. "This is a rights grab wrapped in a hug," he said. "Clause 14 would let them cut your story with B-roll you don't approve. Clause 7 makes your silence consent. Clause 3 is a bear trap. Affiliated entities is doing a lot of work. Can we stop it?" I asked. "We can," he said. "But you need to know something else." He slid another printout in front of me. "Pulled this from the public filings for one of those affiliates. Your name is listed as a creative ambassador on a pilot program. No pay disclosed. No contract attached. The filings were made 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks before the offer. Before the one-pager. Before the junior coordinator told me she cried at the line about my name fitting me now." "How did they use my name?" I asked. "Someone signed for you," he said, gentle as a warning. "On a portfolio of micro deals, event appearances, cross-posted content, even a surprise cameo at a charity gala. I remembered a DM I ignored from a brand rep about, 'Can we count on your presence next month?' I'd assumed it was spam. It wasn't spam, it was a net. The room tilted. I grabbed the back of a folding chair until the metal dug crescents into my palm. Lena stepped closer. Mara did too. The man in the powder blue blazer went very still, like prey. "You're going to email every single person who has my name on anything," I told him. "You're going to retract. You're going to say you don't represent me. You're going to CC my lawyer. And you're going to tell my father that if he touches my signature again, we'll call this what it is." "What is it?" he whispered. "Fraud," Gabe said, calm, clear. "Identity misuse with intent to profit. In civil court if we're generous. Elsewhere if we're not," he paled. "I didn't know," he said. "Now you do," I said. Mara slid into the gap with a new steadiness. "We'll reset," she said to me, "on your terms or not at all. We're not in the business of laundering anyone's control issues. Control, there it was, naked. Not love, not protection. Control." I wish I could tell you I felt relief right then. I didn't. I felt fury, bright and clean. The kind that makes your hands stop shaking. The kind that tastes like a metal you could bite. I walked outside. The evening heat hit my face. Cars hissed past on Sunset. In the pawnshop window across the street, a handful of guitars glowed like they remembered every song they'd ever played. My phone buzzed again. A new email. A calendar invite. Sophia, surprise appearance, benefactor tribute. Location, a ballroom in Century City. Sponsor, my father's restructured group. Attached, a run of show with my name printed next to closing remarks. You can't make this up. Or maybe you can. If you think you own someone, I hit reply, decline, unauthorized, remove my name, I CC'd Gabe, I CC'd Mara. Then I did something I don't usually do. I posted, not a rant, not a tell-all, just one square, white text on black. Your name is not community property. Ask before you use it. Mean it when you say, it's your choice. I put the phone away. I went back inside. We had a run-through. I did the monologue about doors and thresholds and names that finally fit. I let the audience's quiet hold me where my anger couldn't. When the show ended, a teenager in a denim jacket hovered near the pallet stage. He looked like he'd sprinted the last block. "I brought my mom," he said, breathless. "She never comes to stuff. She cried when you said, 'Silence isn't consent.' She told me to tell you, 'Thank you.'" There it was, the point. The pull that wasn't a trap. The reason you keep showing up when it would be easier to burn it down, stakes check. This wasn't about a condo anymore. It wasn't even about a contract. It was about my face on things I didn't choose. My voice saying words I didn't write. My name being rubbed like a magic coin until it meant nothing. Public image, private truth. The wide gap where a person can disappear if she isn't careful. You ever catch yourself at the edge of a story someone else is writing for you and think, "Not this time"? That's where I stood under those cafe lights we'd strung ourselves, breathing in sawdust and lemon cleaner and resolve. I didn't torch the offer, not yet. I didn't sign it either. I tightened my circle. I sharpened my lines. I made a list of what was mine. My words, my face, my story, my no, my yes. And for the first time, I believed I could keep them. If you've had your name borrowed without permission, even by family, how did you take it back? Put it in the comments. Your playbook might save a stranger who needs it tonight. I didn't sleep that night. I watched the digital clock glow and fade like a lighthouse in a fog I couldn't name. The offer sat on my dresser, the PDF a little monster on my phone. Every few minutes I'd open it, read the same lines, and shut it again like a hot stove. I kept hearing Gabe's voice, rights grab wrapped in a hug, and Mara's, "We'll reset on your terms," and my own, quieter but stubborn. "What do you want, Sophia?" So I made coffee too early and walked to the warehouse before the sun had time to make up its mind. The roll-up door rattled in the morning breeze. Dust motes drifted in the single bar of light like slow snow. No soundtrack. Just the hum of the city waking up and my heartbeat trying to set the tempo. I stood center stage, shoes on tape marks, pallet boards warm from yesterday's lights. "What do you want?" I asked the empty seats. The answer wasn't a thunderclap. It was a small, steady thing, like a pilot light catching. I wanted a room where my voice didn't need translation. I wanted a contract that treated my story like a living thing, not a product. I wanted yes and no to belong to me again. Lena arrived with 2 paper cups and a look that said, "I will stand behind you even if you set the town on fire." We didn't talk at first. We watched the light crawl up the far wall and turn our taped-on curtains into something grand. Finally, I said it out loud. "I'm not signing, not like this." "Good," she said. Then, now what? We built now what, like we built everything else, with a list on a pizza box and a Sharpie running out of ink. Reopen community nights, add matinees, launch pay-what-you-can seats online, record a clean capture with 3 cameras we borrow from neighbors, drop the new monologue, publish a statement that says independent, yes, controlled, no. Does that sound small? It didn't feel small. It felt like choosing. At noon, we met Mara and Gabe on the loading dock. The heat came in waves off the asphalt. Mara put a folder on the crate between us. "Clean version," she said. "No affiliates. No third-party liaisons. Full creative sign-off. You keep ownership. We license a limited run if and when you want it. Or we walk away and clap for you from the audience. Your call, your call." 2 words that changed the air in my lungs. I read every line. I circled clauses, crossed out adjectives that tried to sneak in and soften a promise. Gabe nodded, scribbling counters in the margins. We moved slowly, like people carrying glass. When we were done, the contract looked like a field of tiny flags, mine. "I'm going to step back," Mara said, eyes clear. "Whatever you decide, I want to see the next show." "Come Friday," I said. "Bring whoever needs a reminder of why this started." We ate parking lot tacos on the curb and called it lunch. The salsa stung and it felt good to feel anything that simple. The post went up at 4, a photo of the pallet stage and a caption, "Independent by choice." No one speaks for me without my yes. I didn't name names. I didn't need to. Within an hour, the comments stacked like bricks you could build a home from. Same thing happened to me, different rooms. "Thank you for saying no out loud. Keep the edges. That's where the light comes in." The DMs split down the middle. Half were love notes, half were warnings. "Careful, you're burning bridges. Be nice, don't be difficult." That word again, difficult. A word that has been busy for centuries, keeping women small. I let it roll off. I had other words to hold. By 6, our line curled around the block. Not influencers, not industry, teachers, nurses. A guy who fixed phones for a living. A grandma in vans with her granddaughter. The kind of audience you don't buy, you earn. Volunteers wheeled out borrowed fans. Someone chalked arrows on the sidewalk. Someone else passed a Sharpie and a torn piece of cardboard for a sign that read, "Your name belongs to you." The room felt different that night. Not bigger, truer. The hum rose before the lights dimmed, like the crowd had already decided to meet us halfway. I stepped into my light and the first words came out steady. The new piece lived in my chest like it had been waiting for this exact Thursday. I told them about thresholds and signatures that almost looked like yours. I told them about standard and how you're allowed to ask why. I told them the dumbest thing I ever learned was that saying no makes you ungrateful, and then I did something that scared me. I stopped. Mid-monologue. I looked straight down the barrel of the camera we borrowed and straight at the front row, and I asked, "Has anyone here had their yes or their no stolen?" Hands went up. Not dramatic, not staged, just honest. A woman in scrubs, a teenager, a man with paint on his jeans. The room held its breath together. I let the silence do what silence does when you respect it. Then we moved. The scene snapped back in and it landed like a clean hit. Backstage, between beats, my phone buzzed. A text from a number saved years ago as Dad. "You are making a mistake. Hollywood is an opportunity. Don't throw it away out of pride." Flashback. Me, 11, handing a drawing of a lighthouse to my father and hearing, "The light is crooked." That sentence lived in my ribcage for years, making itself useful whenever I tried to shine. I watched the new text shrink to a gray bubble and decided to let it float away. The second act felt like flying a kite in wind you can finally trust. I heard Lena laugh in the dark at a line she'd heard 100 times. I saw Mara in the back row, her notebook closed, her face open. I saw the kid in the denim jacket again, this time with his mom, who squeezed his hand when I said, "Silence isn't consent." I felt the pallet boards beneath my feet hold. Climax isn't always a shout. Sometimes it's a door clicking into place. Mine did halfway through the final monologue when I said, "I'm not afraid of small rooms anymore if my name is on the door," and realized I meant it, marrow deep. Not a posture, a choice. After the show, the alley turned into a town square. People lingered. Someone brought out a guitar. Someone else stuck a sticker on our fake door that said, "Your story, your rules." Gabe clinked a bottle of Topo Chico against mine. "You know you don't need my permission," he said. "But you have my applause." "Keep your day job," I told him. We laughed like people who'd slept 4 hours and earned it. Mara found me near the roll-up where the night poured in. "I pulled the plug on the brand team," she said softly. "Also, I forwarded your edits. They accepted most." They pushed back on one clause. "Which?" "The one where you get final cut on social clips. Of course. The internet is where control likes to hide dressed as strategy." I felt the stubborn part of me sit up straighter. "Then we wait," I said, "or we don't do it." Mara nodded. "This," she said, gesturing to the alley, the people, the laughter, "is a thing with its own gravity. Don't let anyone convince you you're lucky to be here. They're lucky to be invited." When she left, My grandfather slipped into her space. He looked smaller under the string lights, older somehow, in an honest way. He pressed a wrinkled envelope into my hand. "No checks," he said. "No wires. Just a list of people who helped me when I was young and stupid. Call any of them if you want advice, not money advice. And Sophia, I'm proud of your no." He kissed my forehead and disappeared into the hum. We packed up late. The warehouse smelled like sweat and roses someone left on the edge of the stage. Lena and I sat on the steps, feet dangling, sharing a cold slice of something that used to be pizza. "Do you ever wish it were easier?" she asked. "Every day," I said. "But I don't wish it were different." My phone lit up with new messages, bloggers, a streamer's social lead asking to meet. No middlemen, your terms, old classmates. Strangers who felt like cousins. A theater in Silver Lake offering us a 2-night slot. A community center downtown asking for a workshop. The door I'd chosen wasn't small, it just didn't have a chandelier. It had a good lock and my name on it. I drafted one more post before bed, not a manifesto, a map. We're adding shows. We're recording our own capture. We're building a residency for voices that get mislabeled difficult. If you've got a story you're ready to tell, our stage is open. Empowerment is a big word. It can feel like a billboard on a highway you're too tired to drive. But sometimes it's a key on a ring. Click, your door, your room, your light, as crooked as you like. If you've ever had to choose between a louder room and a truer one, how did you decide? Drop your take in the comments. Your yes, your no, your why. It might be exactly what someone needs at 2 a.m. when the offer on their dresser won't stop breathing. The week after that Thursday felt like a season. The warehouse smelled like fresh paint and wilting roses. Our taped curtains kept curling at the corners, stubborn as always. I woke up with the same thought for 7 mornings in a row. Hold your line. It wasn't anger anymore. It wasn't fear either. It was a quiet I trusted. News travels in this town like heat, slow at first and then all at once. My father's restructured media group started blinking on and off in the trades, leadership shakeup, liquidity concerns, brand partners pause activations. I didn't share the links. I didn't text a single "told you so." Grief is messy even when it belongs to someone who hurt you. But I won't lie. There was fairness in the air I hadn't tasted in a long time. My grandfather came to every show that week. He sat in the back with his cane hooked over his knee and clapped like he was making up for lost time. After a Saturday matinee, he pressed a thin notebook into my hands. "Ledger," he said. "Not of money, of promises I kept and promises I broke. I've been adding to it. You helped me start a new column. I flipped it open. Dates, names, short entries in tidy handwriting. Told Sophia I was proud of her no. Called the kid from Boyle Heights about his grant application. Listened twice before giving advice. I wanted to cry and didn't. Not because tears were wrong, because his small, precise sentences felt like something sacred you don't wash with salt. Me? I started a different ledger, not in a notebook, in the room. We put up a board near the roll-up door. The things you get to keep. Sharpies dangled on strings. People wrote my accent, my name hyphen, my Saturday morning, my yes when I mean it, my number when I need it. The board filled in a day. We painted a fresh one, then another. The call with Mara and the partners happened on a Tuesday, late. I sat cross-legged on the warehouse floor, phone balanced on a milk crate. We went line by line through the contract. Then we paused on the clause they'd pushed back on. The social cuts. I pictured little squares running away with my voice, dressed as strategy. "Final cut stays with me," I said. "Steady, not negotiable." Silence. A pen clicking on the other end. Then, finally, understood. It didn't feel like victory fireworks. It felt like a door clicking shut, smooth and right. The best sound. 2 days later, I got a message from a community center downtown. "Would you consider a residency? We have a little theater and a lot of teens who write like their lives depend on it." I walked over to see the space. The floor creaked, the lights hummed. The seats were wobblier than ours. It was perfect. We said yes. We wrote a flyer with 3 lines that made me shake a little. Bring your story, keep your name. We'll hold the light. I wish I could wrap my father's collapse into a single neat paragraph with a lesson at the end. Real life didn't give me that. Lawsuits, statements, apologies written by people who get paid to apologize. One afternoon, he showed up at the warehouse. Not with an entourage, alone. He waited by the door until I saw him. We stood facing each other under the string lights we'd hung ourselves. He looked older than the last time, softer around the edges. "Sophia," he said. 2 syllables he used to say like a verdict. This time, more like a question. "I can listen," I said. "I won't be convinced," he nodded. "I'm not here to convince. I'm here to say I did this because I was afraid. Afraid you'd fail in public, afraid you'd need me, afraid you wouldn't. I called it protection so I could live with it. It wasn't. There was a time those words would have cracked me open. Now they just settled where they belonged, on the shelf labeled truths that arrive late and still count. I can't give you what I kept from you," he said. "I can say I'm sorry. I can leave you alone." "That last part," I said. "That's the gift. We didn't hug. We didn't pose for a tidy ending." He left, and the door sighed shut behind him. Pattern interrupt. No music swelled. Just a forklift beeping in the alley and a neighbor's laugh carrying up the stairs. Life, refusing to turn into a movie cue. Closure isn't a ribbon, it's a hinge. It lets the door move the way it was built to. I felt mine carry weight and still swing. We painted a new mural on the warehouse wall that weekend. Not a masterpiece, a map. The city as lines and breath, the routes we take when we're brave and the routes we take when we're tired, looping toward the same square with a sign on it. Your name here. A dozen volunteers showed up with brushes and playlists. A kid from the residency sketched the first line. A nurse on her day off filled in a sunburst. My grandfather painted a sloppy heart and refused to fix it. People bring snacks when they want to belong. Someone set down a lemon cake. Someone else brought cold peaches in a paper bag. A man I'd never met wiped sweat with his sleeve and said, "This feels like a town with no mayor." "Yes," I said. "Exactly." We kept the shows going. We added talkbacks where the audience could stand up and say the sentence they swallowed this week. We taught a workshop called "No is a Full Sentence" and watched a room full of strangers nod in the same rhythm. We recorded our own capture with the borrowed cameras and a choir of fans humming like cicadas. The footage shook a little. I loved it more for that. One night after a show, a girl in a corduroy jacket handed me an envelope. Inside was a single Polaroid. Her, standing at our mural, pointing to the words, "Your name here," with a grin that took up her whole face. On the back she'd written, "I thought I had to be nice to be safe. Your monologue taught me I can be kind without being quiet. Thank you." I stuck the photo under a magnet on the warehouse fridge next to a pizza coupon and a crayon drawing of our stage. And because you've been with me for all of this, let me put the message plain. Freedom isn't a room with no walls. Freedom is a room where the walls have windows you can open and a lock only you can turn. It's not built on other people's fear of your failure. It's built on your willingness to choose, even when the choosing makes you shake. Stakes check, one last time. It started with money. It grew teeth in the shape of image and voice. It ends where it should, with ownership, not of an apartment, but of a life. That's heavier and lighter than any deed. Quick flashback, me at the Beverly Hills table, cheeks burning, air thin. Cut to now, me in scuffed sneakers, paint on my hands, a stage behind me that smells like plywood and second chances. Same girl, different door. Will I ever sign something big? Maybe, but it won't be because someone said standard. It will be because the deal recognizes the thing I finally do. My name is mine. My voice is mine. My story is mine, even when I share it, especially when I share it. So here's where I leave you for now, under cafe lights, in a warehouse that won't make the cover of a magazine, but will make room for your truth. If you've ever had to stand back up after a betrayal and decide what stays and what goes, I want to hear the shape of your answer. Tell me in the comments. Tell me the line you drew and how you kept it. Someone's going to read it tonight at 2 a.m. Hold it like a key and try their door again. And if you're that someone, if the world just asked you to be small, borrow my sentence until yours arrives. No is a beginning, yes is a promise. Both belong to you. If you've ever rebuilt your voice after someone tried to use it for you, share your story below. Your map might be the light another person needs to find their way home.